Today I'm going to show you how to use the presentation that you've already created to add some different formatting tools in order to jazz up your presentation and make it more presentable. In order to do this, you will already have to be in your presentation, so you'll have to be signed into your Google account, and then you'll need to select the item that you've saved, which should be labeled under presentation. You'll know that it's a presentation because it has this yellow signature within the Google Drive. Once you're there, you can go ahead and start by clicking on the first slide that you created. One of the things I'd like for you to include is a background. Now, most of the time backgrounds are the same throughout the entire presentation. When you first created your presentation, you may have chosen a theme. You can either choose one of these themes that have already been created, and select it. And you'll see that it tailors it to be a little bit different for the slides that follow your title slide. You can also go to this background button here to change the background, and you can select it to just be a single color if you'd like. Choose whether you want it to be applied to just one slide or whether you'd like to be applied to all slides. Now I can see from the background that it's not going to change everything, so I'm going to go ahead and reset and X out. I'm going to go back to my themes, and I'm going to change it back to a plain background so that when I go back into my background menu, I can simply select the color that I want. If I apply it to all slides, you'll see that they all turn the same color. If I unselect that, then I can go back and choose a single color to just one slide. Personally, I like the themes that are already here, so I'm just going to go and select a theme for my presentation. I can go back and change this, so if I want to include that blue, I can leave it, or if I want to go back, I can go back and change that in my background settings. Each of your slides will need to have a background setting. On my next slide, I'm going to go and alter some of the text. When I click on the text, I'll see that the text box comes up, showing me how I can resize it if I need to. I need to make sure that if I want to change anything in my text, I need to click and drag over the text. That's very important. If you only click in the middle of the word, it will only change either just that word or nothing at all. Clicking and dragging tells the computer which part of the text that you would like to change. There are several ways that you can change your text. I'd like to see that you can change the fonts, the size, use some of the tools such as bold, italic, or underline, and also be able to change the color. I'd prefer for you not to use the highlight tool at this point in time. The highlight tool does just as it says, it highlights the text, and that tool would be if we were actually looking to try to highlight just certain parts of the text, and since we're doing a presentation, we want it to be as clear and crisp as possible. So I'd like you to stick to just text and leave the highlight on transparent. So one thing I can do if I don't want this to be red is I can go through, change my text to black for this part up here, and I can see it's still in highlight, so I need to go back up here and change that again. I want that to be set to transparent. When this is highlighted in gray, I can go and change the color to the color that I'd like. I'd also like this to be in the middle, so I'm going to center it. This tool right here allows you to do left, center, right, and then justify it if you have enough text to span the entire line. For these things right here, I'm going to select the first line of text. So let's go ahead and select all the text and change the size. I noticed it was on 30. I'd like this to be a little bit larger since I have more space I can fill. I'm going to try for 48, and I can see that's too large. I'm losing some of my text. Try 36, and that brings it back to a more reasonable size. I can also change my font. You'll see that you have a pretty standard amount of fonts. These fonts are recognized all across the internet. Sometimes if you choose fonts on the computer, they don't translate well to internet uses, such as the one we're doing right now. I'm going to go ahead and choose the Verdana. So right now I have changed the font, I have changed the size, I have changed the color at the top of my title. The other thing that I can do is go through and change certain things. Like maybe I need to make this word background stand out a little bit more. I might make that in bold. This part here, I may need to emphasize that I'm working with the font, so I might underline that part here. And for adding photos, I might italicize that, making it stand out a little bit more in the text. The word art has its own feature. It can be found up here in the formatting tool. Excuse me, in the insert button. Clicking on word art, I entered in the text that I wanted, and now I'm going to drag it down. And you'll see as I'm clicking and dragging, there is a red line down the center. If I hold that down, I can see that it disappears as I start to drag it off center. Once I hit center again, and you'll see that on the left and right side, it's now equal on the left and equal on the right. So when I go to move it, if I'm right on center, it will do that. If I hold down the Shift key, it will allow me to keep that there so I know exactly where it is the whole time. Once I found the point where I want to drop it, I can drop it there. And then I can go up to my tools and I can change things like line color. The fill, the line that goes around it, even the lines that go around the letters. And so I'm able to include those things in word art. This might be a good place to use it in your title. If I go and instead of using this, I could actually click and highlight. If I hold down the Control key or use my right mouse button, I can cut this text and choose the word art from the insert menu. Again, if I hit Control and then click, or use the right click on my mouse, I can paste it so I don't have to retype the text again. And as it says, use Enter to save. If you need to have multiple lines, meaning that you need to go down, you'll need to hold the Shift key down and then hit Enter in order to go down. After you hit Enter, you'll see that it pops up right here. Now I'm not real happy with how this is sized across here, so I'm going to double click on it again, and I'm going to actually use that Shift Enter and see if I like that a little better. Now I don't need that title there, so when I click on it I'll see that it goes away. As a matter of fact, this is a text box that I will not need, so if I click on it to highlight this outer area, I can now hit the Delete key, and now I'm left with just my word art. I can stretch my word art to make it the size I want, which means I don't have to go and choose a size like I did with the different fonts before. And as I drag it around, remember to keep it in the center. You need to have it so the red line is showing. Then I can go and I can change the things that I need within my presentation lines to my liking. The only thing that I ask is that you're able to keep it so that it's got clean lines and it's easily read. If it gets too distracting, like the color and the black here is starting to become distracting, I'd recommend either changing the color to something a little easier to read, or possibly the outline to something a little less distracting. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and center this. Going to head and delete this word art now that I don't need it. The last thing I want to show you is how to add photos. So to add a photo, there's a couple ways you can do this. There is an image button here. There's lots of handy tools that you can find up here inside the words, but instead, because they're used quite often, are straight across this bar. You can also go to Insert and click on Image here. Now when you're looking for an image, you can find it in several different ways. If your image happens to be stored on the computer, which in our case probably will not happen, you can actually upload it from the computer. If you found a picture on the internet and you know the URL, meaning that you know the actual www. Or http:/address that the picture can be found at, you can insert that here. What most of us are probably going to try today is coming down to the search button here, and it allows you to actually search images that are on Google. So since we're using Google Drive, I'm going to go ahead and type in Google Drive. And I can see some images come up. Whichever image I would like, I can click on it. And for our bibliography in the future, we may want to actually highlight this and save it in our bibliography page, meaning your resources page at the end of your presentation. But for practice this time, we're going to just click Select, and you'll see the image will transition and pop up here. When you click on it, you can resize it just like you would in any other program. Look for that red center line, and you can add I happen to choose, when I was creating this, to include a caption at the bottom, and so that's why I have this already designated down here. I'm going to want this to be centered again. And there you have it. These are the formatting tools that you need to include in your Google presentation once you have finished typing.